Well, good afternoon. It is our pleasure to call this special call meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen for the City of Natchez to order, the Finance Committee. The purpose of this meeting today is the discussion of our final list for $6 million in bond-funded street improvements for the City of Natchez. At this time, I will ask everyone, Alderwoman, I'll ask everyone to please stand for our prayer to be followed by our pledge. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. And Father, we thank you for the rain this morning. And we thank you for always being there to meet our needs. We thank you for meeting the needs of Natchez and for the important business that we have to discuss this afternoon. And we thank you, Father, that we actually do have the funds to make significant improvements to our streets here in Natchez. And we ask you to guide us in our deliberations and to help us make good decisions. Continue to watch over our city and all of those in our care. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Let us repeat together our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We'll ask the clerk to administer the roll call.
Alderwoman Hall. Here. Alderman Frazier.
Here.
Alderwoman Smith. Here. Alderwoman Irvin. Here. Alderman Davis.
Here.
And Alderman Dillard.
Here.
All are here and accounted for, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I do want to make just a little announcement. We are so grateful the Friends of Auburn are here, and we are so sorry that this is not the meeting we're going to discuss Auburn. That will be at 6 o'clock, and I hope you can come back. But you are welcome to enjoy the discussion of our street improvement project. But we do appreciate you so much, and we are looking forward to that update on the future of Auburn, which will be coming up at 6 o'clock. Some great things to share. Well, at this time, I would like to recognize our Director of Public Works, Justin Dollar, who is going to be here to help guide us in this discussion. I think, as I understand, Justin, Mr. Dollar, as I understand, this is going to end up being the most significant project in recent memory. Therefore, a lot of streets on the list, a lot of things to discuss. We have started with your list, and that list was provided to the aldermen quite some time ago. And then we asked the aldermen for their input, and we got some input from them. I'm going to, though, first just ask you to kind of give us some history as far as the inventory list that Public Works maintains for the city.
Okay, so as stated, Mayor, probably about 2 months ago, I provided you all with the list of our street inventory index, which includes all the city streets in Natchez. In that, the streets are ranked based on their surface conditions. And through that, you'll see they've got rankings 1, 2, 3, 4, so forth, all the way down through the total. I think it's 480 streets on that entire list. And of course, the last ranking, the ones at the bottom are the ones that we have done over the past, say, 8 years or so. When we've done overlays, as we do them, they go to that ranking and basically fall off to the bottom of the list. So some of the ones that you'll see at the bottom of the list have been done in the last 8 years or so. Many of you probably remember many of those that have been done. In the list that I provided you all, that list includes all city streets, regardless of the designation. Whether it's a city street, FAU route, it doesn't matter. It includes the entire all city streets within the city limits. So it does not pull any of those out of those particular streets. And so as you go down through it, you can pretty much see, kind of how it's done. I know that the last or a few meetings ago, Mayor, you had asked the board to provide a list of streets per ward that they would be interested in or that would be at the top of their list. So I guess today the question and thing that needs to be answered is how the board wishes to proceed with this. Do we want to, and I know last time we spoke, hopefully I clarified, we'll have to look at it kind of one of two ways. One is either we can follow the list that was provided here, or we could look to say, okay, there's, $5 million and it can be split amongst the 6 wards, or ever how you all decided to do that, or it could be a combination thereof. But for me, we just need some direction as far as what we're going to do so that we can start moving. Whether we want to say, okay, we're going to give $300,000 to each ward, we'll do those, and then from there we'll follow the list. That would, totally be up to y'all. And I'm just using numbers when I say this, but of course that would totally be up to y'all as how you wanted to move forward. But we'll need some direction of how you would all like to move forward.
All right. Thank you. At this time, we are not going to entertain any motions until we've had a thorough discussion. This is a meeting of our entire finance committee, which is a committee of the whole, and everyone has input to make. And I think in order for us to just at this time maintain some order to our discussion, I would like for us to go one ward at a time, starting with you, Alderwoman Hall, and your comments. I know we invited the alderman to provide lists, and 2 aldermen did that, Alderwoman Hall and Alderwoman Irving. And so we have those lists before us. And so we're just going to go in, and we would just like your input, and those of you have provided a list, more information on your list. So Alderwoman Hall, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I provided to Mr. Dollar was, according to his list, I gave him a list of only my ward as the ranks, the number and the rank that he had on his list. And I color coded mine to let him know which streets in Ward 1 were a priority to me. And the green color was some that I noticed the work has been partially done on. But the red for me that I provided was my priority list.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. And Mr. Dollar, have you looked at her priority list?
I have.
Yes.
So I've got it right here that she provided. And so again, it's kind of go back to what we talked about, that she in this, signifies which ones are prior to her, which is fine with me. Again, it's up to the board how we want to do that. If that's the case, then we would, you would change the list based on her priority. I guess in doing that, to be fair, do we, one of the questions going to be asked, are we going to utilize this list for your particular ward? So are we going to follow our list, and when we run across a street that's in your ward, take and swap one of these streets out with that one? Or are we going to go back to doing, allocating you an X number of dollars and working off this
Right.
list?
Sure.
I think that's what we're here for today, to
Exactly.
try to get that question answered.
That's right. So I would like to consider this list and how it deviates from the master list. And if we could just go down as, it's not very many. The ones that she has in green, I think we can go ahead and say Old Smith Lane work has already been done there according to her,
And
so
so-
we can check that off.
Not to interrupt you.
Yes.
The latest spreadsheet that y'all got last week or the week before, that has been updated based on the 592 project being completed.
Okay,
All of that
Mhm.
list has been taken
Right.
care of. So on
great.
the current list that you all have from a week or two ago, that has been done based on once that project was completed, we updated the index
Okay.
Thanks.
from the
great.
original list that I gave you all 2 months ago.
Okay, thank you.
And so she is in agreement then that Cemetery Road would become the number one, and it is.
Well,
on
Ward
the-
1,
Yeah,
correct.
and it is on the street
And
inventory.
it's on the street inventory.
So Yeah, which ones here would be, Oak Street is definitely a well-used street. It is in need of repair. Travel it quite often. Where does it fall on the overall list?
Well, there's two sides to Oak Street too, Mayor.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it says
It's
40, it's number
number
47.
47.
It's 47. Look at my list.
Yes,
The number according to
there it
Mr.
is,
Dollar's list,
47.
and then the rank according to Mr. Dollar.
And this is the question I have. If we follow the ranks as you have them here, Mr. Dollar, if we're looking at 6 million, by the time we take out fees and, all of the expenses of planning and how much do we really have that will go to true
So I think
streets?
of the ultimate 6 million, that's some further discussions we've got to have in regards to this. There was originally 6 million. I think there's been fees and so forth out. So I think it's around 5.5, 5.6 million is what's available for the overlay project.
Okay.
Now, again, with that, there's a lot of things that's a lot of contributing factors that's going to come to that overall total. Are we going to do milling? Are we going to do striping? Are we going to do curb and gutter repair? Are we going to, of course, you got to do base layer failure if we're just doing a straight overlay. All those things are going to indicate how the number of streets that we actually get through this process.
Right.
Again, every street is different in length and width. So to say that, I can just tell you you're going to do 40 streets, I can't do that. What we can do, depending on once the board makes a decision of how they want to move forward, what my intentions are, is to put together a list of probably 50 streets. Okay. That what I think will come up to just say $5.5 million. And then from there, only other way, once we get to that point, that will be what's looked at for an overall project from an engineering standpoint. From there, when we get the actual numbers, will be based on bids that are received based on that. So it may be that the bids come in, higher, and we may have to back off some of the streets and say take out, 4, 5, 10. I can't answer that
Right.
till that time. Or we may can add 4 or 5 streets.
Right.
We don't know, but that's kind of the logic I think would be.
If we follow your list specifically here, according to, the rankings, then, how far do we go into your list until we have expended $5.5 million?
I think, 60 to 65 streets is going to be more than what you're going to get. I don't believe you will fully, truly get that number when it's all said and done. I could be wrong, but just looking at some numbers and these, again, the costs on here are just really, really rough estimates on these. But I think doing that, if you went through and looked at, and I don't know if you all have that, but one I did, like in ranking number 1, roughly looking at a little over 300,000 for that. And then get through your ranking number 2. That totaled a little over $5 million. So that's just right there alone. You see, just rankings 1 and 2 are going to be roughly somewhere around that number.
And that gets us to number 70 on your list.
Again, I would kind of hold about 60 in my head.
Right. So in continuing that, the list that has been provided here by Alderwoman Hall, I would like to just note which of these are in that top 70. It would be, right there. Once we get past number 71, those streets actually fall pretty far down on the priority list. So if we were to look at these, then we are looking at Cemetery Road. We're looking at some work possibly remaining on Linton. In addition to all these other streets that are already on the rankings, I'm just going by the ones you
Linton is not
highlighted.
in any disrepair. I mean, some work has been done on Linton.
Some work has been done. I know you have it in green. It's not an emergent.
No, it's not
one of the
emergency.
most
No,
urgent
the
ones.
ones in red are the emergency.
Oak Street, Old Grounds Lane. Now, North Rankin Street, desperate need of repair. I would agree with you on that one. But now when you get on down, we have some here that you've noted, but they are far down in the rankings. What makes a street
Yeah, they're not-
ranked lower? Number,
Basically, based on surface conditions.
service
And,
conditions.
yeah, surface conditions. Now, again, of course, with this list, there's 480 streets. Normally what we do for like our past projects, for instance, they're just say 250 to 300,000. We take the top 50 streets that's on this index, and then we go rewrite them, reevaluate them, and make a decision from there. To have to ride 500 streets and, review and analyze the entire thing, the time consuming portion of that would take us, a month or two of doing that every single day. And we know that we're not going to get to that point. So again, that's kind of I would say, I'm not going to say wasted time almost in effect is ultimately what it is. So that's kind of how that's
But
based on that. So for like this list, if it was going to be done, then we would take, I guess, we could look at the top 100, what we're
Right.
going to be doing in a case like that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
but
Alderwoman Hall.
even down at number 149, 151, Beach Street, Bluff Street, those are, the surfaces there are just deplorable. But they are further down on the list. Hicktober, Irving Lane, those streets haven't had work done in a very, very long time. Looking at them in Marion Avenue. So even though they're ranked higher, higher, 4 and 149, 151, et cetera, they're pretty deplorable conditions.
And I want to say Locust Alley is on this list, but Locust Alley is about to have some individual attention on its own. I don't
I
know
didn't
that
even
it has
know.
to be.
Is the street.
Well, we are going to have to make repairs in there to make it pedestrian friendly, for sure. And it is on this. I tell you what, Alderwoman Hall, we're going to move along for the
yes,
moment.
Absolutely.
I'm going to move to Alderman Frazier and get his input, and we're going to just continue with this discussion all the way down and then come back and come to some decisions.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Frazier.
I didn't give a list to you simply because of the reason I have in my own what I need to be done. What I did is that I rode my whole district and my whole ward and just all the streets and find out which streets was in bad repair that really need fixing, such as like I told number 22 on here, which is Camp Street and number 31. These streets are in deplorable condition. And after looking at this, some of these streets that they run along the line with Alderwoman Urban that I need to be, especially some of the intersections, they come together. And I'm looking at the amount of some of these streets and stuff. And I know that we don't have that money that we have is not going to go a long ways. And I'm looking at some of the shorter streets and the cost of the streets in my ward that need to be done. And I think that what I'm gonna do, Mr. Mayor, if please with the board, I'm gonna have to get some of these little side streets and these little neighborhoods that haven't been done. I know it don't cost that much, but I like to get some of those done. And I'll provide a list. But like I say, you can go on and on with me, but I'm just here to inform everyone that not everyone is gonna get the street done. And as you know, in my ward, a lot of streets in my ward don't have curbs and drainage in it, period. So that's one of the issues that I'm facing too. But I will provide a list of what need the streets that I'm interested in, like 333 on Vaughn Drive. Those streets are in bad repair out there. But I have your thing here, and I'm looking at it. And I just want to tell you, thank you for providing this with it. And like I say, at night when I go back home, I'll look down at it again and see what all the streets need to be done. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Frazier. Alderwoman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe in the process that we've been using. I do. If there's something I think that each person really feels strongly should be switched out, I think that should be written with Justin, and then we make an informed decision on it. But if we start trying to go individually, I think it's going to be a mess. I mean, I feel like we need to go with the process we've done for the last 11 years because it makes sense. It puts the politics out of street paving and really brings it to necessity. Could something be off a little bit? And it could be.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that each alderman needs to bring to his attention just to make sure. But for mine, it looks like absolute worst ones are definitely on here.
Mhm.
So I think the process has worked for Ward 3.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Irving?
Okay, Ward 4. I have some, and I feel the same way exactly to use what we've done. Even though there are some priorities, we've looked at Rember Street. We said that that street hadn't been done over 20 years. So we knew that one had not. South Concord coming from Minor Street, South Concord all the way out to, South Brenham Avenue, all the way out to South Concord.
Correct.
That need to be done. Actually, that was one of the top streets for this cycle when we picked up what we done this time. Old Devereaux Street, we looked at that street. It had not been done. And that's why I didn't know how many streets, but these are my priorities. Old Devereaux Drive or Street, Auburn Avenue, from East Franklin, Auburn, all the way actually out to Winchester. That's that side street off East Franklin coming to that
Yeah.
intersection.
Across the intersection.
Yes, sir.
Intersection.
Across that intersection, all the way up to Winchester, Arlington Avenue. That entire street needs to be done from Main Street all the way out up to Homachitto. That entire street needs to be done. St. Charles, and I see that's actually on the list here. It would be number 6. So we would select the top 20, then that would be a part of it. St. Charles Avenue would be. What do I have? I have Quitman Street, Cato Street, all those need to be done. And Monette Street, West Vidale. Those are streets that had not been done in a very long time, but in very need of getting done. And North Rankin Street, I have that one. I also want to say the entire street, and because the streets do overlap from Ward 1 to Ward 4, I'm well aware that East Franklin Street and I'm just gonna identify a location from maybe the coffee shop all the way coming up, needs to be done to the intersection right there. That street is in really bad condition. Actually, it seems like
Which street
What
is
street you
that?
saying?
Franklin Street,
Mhm.
Franklin Street,
Mhm.
from the coffee shop
Shop.
all the way up to the intersection is in really bad condition. It needs to be done as well. And I did put that on my list.
Mhm.
What
is it ranked at? What number is
I was
it
trying to
on
find it and I
here?
didn't,
See it,
no, I hadn't.
see what
See
it
it
already.
It'll be a FAU route.
Oh, would be?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still in our list, but I'm just
Okay.
saying it'll be.
In fact, I was about to ask you that question. This might be a good time, Mr. Dollar, and then we'll come back to you, Alderwoman.
Okay.
But explain what the FAU routes are.
It's just a designation. It's federal aid urban designation. Again, there has not been any recent funding in a number of years. I think 2014, 15 was the last funding we got, and that was when Ratcliffe place was done. Dan, you probably remember that when that was done. That was one of the last FAU funding rounds that was done. So it's been quite a while. Now we've sent them 2 or 3 letters over the last 2.5 years. Now I think in here I ran some numbers a while back, and I think it comes up to about $5 million in FAU routes that we have within our city here, is about what it would take roughly to do those. The letter that we submitted, again, that's been about 1.5 to 2 years ago. We've submitted it a number of times, but we went, I think, to 900,000 to right at $1 million. So basically what we did was took our top FAU routes off of this particular list, got to about that number again, rather than submitting a $5 million deal. We submitted about 900,000 to them. I think it was to Commissioner King. And I think we've sent it under your administration.
We have. In fact, I talked to him just a little while ago. I don't know that that's going to happen this cycle. There's always next year, but I'm not ruling it out.
Right.
No,
And the reason we did that is because, of course, most of your FAU routes are going to be your larger, more thoroughfare type streets. Again, therefore, they're going to be large chunks of money, $100,000, $200,000, those type streets, whether a neighborhood street may be $25,000,
right.
for instance. The cost of those is much, much more just because of their size, widths, number of lanes, just different things to come into play on those particular ones. And you'll see several of those at the beginning of this particular list here. which takes up a large chunk of money.
Mhm.
Mr. Mayor.
Um, Alderwoman Irving, I was coming back to
Okay.
her.
I just had a question.
Do you
about
want to
FAU.
entertain a question?
She
to
can.
Just thank
Alderwoman
you. I was
Smith?
just curious with the FAU streets, with the infrastructure bill, the money MDOT has, they're not even considering FAU streets.
It's not that they aren't, but I just can't guarantee we'll get it right now. I think we might be able to get it in the future though. And we can clarify that some more, but I haven't gotten, any affirmation yet.
Okay, just real quick, I know, and then sorry, Alderman Irving, I'll get back to you, but one of the Lower Woodville Road is one, right, correct? What, is that a FAU?
FAU route, probably so. I'd have
I
to go
think
back
it
and
is,
look.
but I know, I mean, it's so bad and it's getting to be about as dangerous as Morgantown Road, but we need, if we don't do anything without our $6 million, we need to consider us striping that
Mhm.
road. It is not good at night.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Lower Woodville is.
yeah, I thought so.
Alderwoman Irving, back to you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. And then I said, Oak Street need to be done. Is it East Oak Street, Justin, from Minor? Is that East Oak Street?
Yes.
From where now?
East Oak Street from
East.
Minor Street. Used to be Wood Street.
Yeah,
And then we have
from Minor to
extensions.
MLK is East Oak
Is
Street.
East
and then
Oak
when you
Street.
cross over is.
It's just Oak
Wood
Street.
Street.
Okay, so East Oak Street and Rickman Street, those streets are in desperate need for repair.
Right.
One of the other things too, in several intersections, for instance, that one, on Auburn Avenue and crossing over to still Auburn Avenue, that intersection with Quitman Road, all that intersects, that needs to, overlay something in there. I'm just bringing that out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That intersection there.
I
It's
know
the
what you
same thing on St. Catherine Street and 4th Street. When you're coming from 4th Street, crossing over the light, going up, that's still 4th Street to Aldrich Street.
Mhm.
There's a big dip in there that needs to be addressed in my ward. Same way with coming off St. Catherine Street, going over to Jefferson Street, right there, Zion Chapel Church. I do see that was, it's a drop there. It's a dip right there for whatever reason. That intersection needs to be looked at as well. In those intersections.
Yeah, the last one you said was Jefferson and St.
Mhm.
Catherine.
Yeah, and MLK. It's right there when you're coming off St. Catherine Street. going
We're
through the
actually, we started a project there yesterday. We're working there now.
light. Okay, so that one I had turned in as well.
Mhm.
There's several areas that you go through the light, and another location would be Brenham Avenue going to Aldrich Street, right there in the center of it. Some work has been done
Yeah.
there, but it's as if it's.
And so some of those, as you say, some of them do have dips, and some of that goes back to the fact that, for instance, when you're overlaying a particular street, whichever is normally, the way we've kind of done it in the past, your primary route. So if we're doing a street and it's the primary route and we're overlaying that particular street, then we will pull through that intersection. And when I say pull through it, we will lay asphalt through that intersection. Well, what happens after 1, 2, or more times of this without milling? Well, that street continues to build up, and what happens to your side streets? They get lower, which is in effect why you see some of that of what you're seeing now. Because your original contours and original grades are no longer there because they've been overlaid 2 and 3 times and not brought back down to their original grade. So that's some of those issues. And some of them are done, not all of them. Some of them are done on purpose like that because that is actually used as the drainage from one side to cross over to the other side.
Okay.
So, we have to look at them on an individual basis to see exactly what's going on. Some of them, like I say, could be the first issue. Some of them could be in relation to they're done that way for reasons.
Yes.
So that would have to take it a case by case.
Okay. And then I had included Shady Side Street and some areas on St. Catherine Street need to be looked at as well.
And what I'm noticing, Alderwoman, is quite a few of your streets are already in the top ranking on this. So,
I guess I didn't get that. Let me look to see it.
on this list I'm talking about.
Oh,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and that, yes, the
Okay,
ranking is, yes.
thank you. Alderman Davis?
The one thing I do, I pride myself in riding my ward every weekend. And I looked at the list, and the streets that I deem priority, they are in the top 70. that's one of the good things. But I was looking at like the streets I want, they in the top 7, but if we have some money left over, as if from these streets that we're gonna do from the beginning, like on Dumas Drive, which me and Alderman afraid to split, I would like to see that get done if we have some money left over for it, because that's number 71. And then on number 75, one of my supervisors said he'll do that one for me,
What's that?
McNeely.
McNeely? I will say, so I spoke with the road department today just to kind of get an idea of what particular streets they were looking at. Again, their list has not been finalized yet, but there's only 3 potential streets that's possibly on their list. Possibly McNeely, Cottage Farm, and Woodville Drive, the section behind like Go Mart, behind the apartments there. Those are the 3 that are possible as part of their list. Now, they have not fully confirmed their list at this time, but
And 2 of mine.
yeah, it would be those 2.
And that's about all for right now.
Alderman Davis, I know you've been very concerned about Morgantown Road. We've had a lot of discussions. I believe we already have a plan for repairing Morgantown Road. We're waiting on word on the grant application, the grant that we wrote for DEQ. Provided we get that grant, and I believe we've got a very good chance of getting that grant. With what the city has pledged, the grant and the county has pledged, would any money need to come from this bond for Morgantown Road while we're in Ward 5?
There's already a portion of it coming. I think that's why we went from the 6. And again, I don't have that particular paperwork with me. But Megan had provided that to me, I don't know, a month or so ago. But to get from the 6 million to where we're at now, I want to say there was, and again, I can't remember the exact amount, so I hate to say the statement, but out of the 6 million, a portion was pulled, and I believe it went towards the match for Morgantown Road. It was either that or Silver Street. I don't
Yes.
remember which one.
Actually, it was Morgantown Road because Silver Street has already been funded through
So that was
ARP,
Morgantown
is
Road.
already budgeted by way of ARPA funds. Richard, do you have any clarification, any recollection? I don't want to throw out the number, but
I don't either.
it's somewhere around $400,000. If you could just maybe get us a little clarification on that number before we get too much further along. We need to make sure that anything we do includes Morgantown Road.
I thought it was $340,000.
That's what I kind of thought.
340,000.
340, that's what I'm remembering.
That's our portion, that's the city's portion.
That's the city's portion. 340.
340,000.
Okay. Because all right, that then is going to have to be considered in this bond. Okay.
So I've got it right here. I found it.
Is it 340?
No, it's 240. So there's $6 million for the originally for the road and streets general obligation bond issue. There was deducted fee for Watkins and Eager and government consulting services to be estimated no more than $75,000 for them. And then there was a deduct of $240 set aside for Morgantown Road, which leaves this a project available at 5.685.
Okay.
But wasn't that before the new engineer fund came in and reallocated funds? So I think it went up.
Can't say this is the last information
And
that I
I think
have.
the 340 is where it is.
We'll
That's the
clarify
last
that.
amount that we had gotten.
Obviously,
And I think that was in our
Because the
budget as
counties went
well.
up to
we're going to have to include
$340,000.
overages and all. I think
I think the counties
Yeah.
went up to
Well,
5.
that'll further reduce the project
Richard's
size.
going to check on that. Okay. We're going to move now to Alderman Davis. Does that conclude?
That's it, man.
Okay. We're going to move now then to Alderman Dillard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got some questions, and one of the top ones that we were coordinating is, with the effort of the Board of Supervisors. Do we know which city streets the Board of Supervisors are addressing?
That's what I was just stating a minute ago. The only 3 potential streets that they're potentially looking at that I'm aware of as of today are McNeely Road, possibly Cottage Farm Road, and the section of Woodville Drive behind Go Mart on that particular side of Woodville, of Highland, I should say. That's the only 3 that were potentially on the list as today. But that
In
list
addition
has
to
not-
Morgantown Road.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah, whatever they do on that. I'm talking about their project.
I mean, they do realize they have constituents that live in the city. I'm assuming that. I don't know how their little signs will come out soon, won't they? The other question I was trying to understand, looking at this, I guess the evaluation chart is the condition chart. It shows weight 100%. So would I interpret that the ranking is determined by 100% by the condition of the road?
That's correct. And what, I don't know, that's probably been 4 or 5 years ago. At one point, we calculated traffic volumes. We had a percentage for that. We had a percentage for number of lanes, that sort of thing. Now, it was still weighted heaviest to condition, but some of the other ones had a factor in it. And the board made a decision, again, I don't remember the year, but it's been 4 or 5 years ago. The board made a decision because what was tending to happen, the board wanted to get into the neighborhoods more. Mm-hmm. So to do that with those streets that had more number of lanes, that had more traffic, that had those things on them, they were ultimately ranking higher, even though the conditions may not have been as bad, just because some of the weight was put there. So the board went back and basically put all of the weight towards the surface conditions of those particular streets. And that's been about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, when that was done.
Did I understand you to kind of give the residential streets a little?
That was the idea behind it when that was done at that point, because the board wanted to kind of get into the neighborhoods a little more and do more of a residential type streets.
That leads.
And I think ultimately one of the reasons is because with all these larger streets, you can only do one of those, or you can do 3 neighborhood streets.
Well,
Those type of things.
and really that kind of leads into my next. The question of these, if I can pronounce it right, these arterial roads that, are feeder roads. And if you look at those, and I'll put one, Liberty Road, Melrose, Montebello. And just simply because I drive Melrose, Montebello, and it's going to get a 2-inch, I think it's 2 inches, maybe it's 1.5 inches. I think that one's 1.5 inches. The only 2 inches I saw were George F. West and Cemetery and Burnham Lane. And then there may be some 2 inches that show up in different other areas. I guess my point being, Mr. Mayor, I was kind of hoping that the Board of Supervisors, would look more at these heavier traffic roads. Because, Melrose, Montebello, and I look at the condition of it, and I think because there's not as much traffic, coming in, because that's where you stop and you turn, you grind on the asphalt and the stopping of the vehicles. We see that right in front of the number 1 fire station. And so I'm trying to understand, that one does have some improvements required needing, but there's an awful lot of these big roads that are going to get it, and we're really not going to get very far down into these neighborhoods. There'll be certainly some, but I think you're asking my question. My next one, Mr. Mayor, I thought Duncan Park Road. I thought that was in that road particularly itself because it's for recreational purposes, and people traffic. But wasn't that part of our recreational effort?
Yes,
We
in
did,
fact,
we've allocated.
we discussed that this morning, and Mr. Dollar's already gotten estimates on repairing Duncan Road. You have it with you there?
I don't necessarily have estimates. What I have here is basically calculations based on length, width, those sorts of things. Our office estimates of what it's actually going to be. If you'll recall, we provided those. I provided them 1 or 2 times over the past several years, but we did go back this morning and update that list because one, we pulled out the street behind the tennis courts. Remember about a month ago for those new tennis courts. So we deducted that, brought that out of it. And then of course the unit cost has dramatically, it's went up exponentially. So we had to update that. So we have that broke down based on the particular streets that's in Duncan Park itself. And of course, we've got, the main stretch. We've got it broke out as one because I think that would be your top priority. And then, of course, you have your side streets, and all those are broke out as standalone streets. If the board decides at some point they want to go and then, spend X number of dollars, and we can pick and choose how you wanted to do that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I mean,
Yeah.
Mayor?
Alderman Dillard, and then we'll recognize you, Alderwoman Hall.
Thank you.
I think what I was looking at was that, it certainly, we have streets to divide wards because they're arterial streets, and that's where ward lines go. I mean, we're in this redistricting, and they find those lines where they can do it, and a lot of them are these major roads. And I think I would argue that the Melrose Montebello, probably from, Ratcliffe to Sergeant Prentice's, I kind of challenge the ranking of it because I drive it a lot, and I also would argue that I think in that case it is 1.5 inches. It's not a 2-inch. But Mr. Mayor, if we're able to look at those streets and then, as Alderwoman Hall has done, say take a lower ranked street and put it in that place at the prerogative of the alderman, I certainly would like to consider that. I think the other one is that, Mr. Mayor, that the Duncan Park Road, I don't think should count against Ward 6's inventory simply because it's being addressed under, another
Right.
source. And that would give another street that I could look at along those lines. What was my last question before? I think you had somebody wanted to speak at the same time. Let's see. Do we know what the supervisor's road effort is? Is it, we're looking at $6 million and then you subtract everything out, we're around 5.5.
Yeah, I don't think there's a final number, but I think it's more than our number.
It's about
More
7.
than,
And Alderwoman Smith has that answer.
Well,
We-
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Yeah,
What
but
I think understanding, and I would encourage all of you that have a supervisor that inside the city limits to contact them, but I did contact Wes, and I think they probably, some street will move up because I think one of mine is going to be done, but it's my understanding that maybe no other ones.
That's what I've been
And
told.
the taxpayers pay city and county taxes. That's up to them to discuss with their supervisor, but I'm thankful that he's doing at least one street in his district. So check with your supervisors. So I think Woodville is going to be the one. I think that'll be $100,000 that'll move up for somebody else. So check with your supervisor if you got one.
If y'all would allow me, Alderwoman Hall's been waiting patiently. Alderwoman
Thank
Hall.
you. I think back to Alderman Dillard's remarks on Duncan Park Road. Initially, we had said 65,000 from the beginning
it's
of
150.
entering Duncan Park up to the railroad. That,
Yeah, that's going to be looking at about not between.
but
90
now I know
and
it's more now, but that
95,000.
was the initial
Mhm.
estimate before everything went up. But, and I agree, it shouldn't go against his ward either for that.
Right.
But the other thing I was thinking, one of your suggestions was each alderman could give you a priority. And if you're looking from 60 to 65 or 66 streets, that would be 11 priority streets from each alderman.
That's a good point. It is.
You can look at doing it that way. You're probably going to be better to say that you're funding, if that's, and I'm just speaking out loud, if that's going to be what you're doing, would probably be better to say, okay, you've got, X number of dollars. Because 11 of your streets may only cost 300,000.
Oh, yeah.
11 of his streets may cost 600,000.
Sure.
That's right.
Right.
So
And
what
on the
you would
land.
do is give a financial number, say, X number of dollars split 6 ways, give you that, and you provide me 20 streets,
Mhm.
and we'll see how far your money goes for your particular 20 streets. It's going to be different in every
Different.
ward, depending on the particular street.
Sure, okay.
Alderman Dillard, let me recognize Alderwoman Irving, then I'm coming back to you, okay? She's had her hand up a while, and then we'll
Thank you,
come back.
Mayor. I just want, he was mentioning, Auburn, and I think that's, what am I turning off, right? Off Home and Tittle coming down to Duncan Park. What's that street?
Duncan Avenue.
Arlington.
That same area, when you make that turn at that, stop sign, right there, Duncan Park, you go inside the park, to the right and the left, it's caving in right there in that area as well. It does need to be, something needs to be done. I mean, because we got a lot of traffic in and out of there, and that street is used very heavily. And I'm just looking at, what it does to your vehicles and cause some things to happen. The other thing that I want to mention, was that I am going to speak with the other supervisors. I'm going to make an effort to reach out to them even more, because one of the supervisors actually lives in my ward. So I will be reaching out to ask, because St. Charles and 4th Street, all of that is, streets that are parallel to the location where they live. So I am going to ask, what can be done in that way. St. Charles, Main Street, right.
Yeah,
Alderman
I will.
Dillard,
you need to move forward.
back to you.
Yeah, just how many paving seasons do you think we're looking at?
Again, based on, I've got paper everywhere, but when we first started this, of course, at the original time, we didn't know what was going to come out of it, but I just took the $6 million. I took $2 million out of that for other costs outside of actually asphalt. And that would be for manholes and valve adjustments, milling, base layer, curb and gutter repair, all those things. So I took out $2 million. And again, this is just some rough numbers here. But I took that out, did it based on our cost of what our asphalt is, came up with a tonnage and a rough estimate about what they can lay in a particular day. Looking anywhere from 5 to 6 months, and that's strictly just laying asphalt. Traffic concerns, how much curb and gutter we're doing, how much milling, all of that potentially could, add time to that. But
I mean, so like one season.
I would
is
think
what
so.
you
If you
anticipate?
started, I would think, and then I did these originally. Then I talked to Mark Godfrey with APAC a few times in regards to the project, and kind of asked him, do I feel like this is kind of along the lines? And he felt that they probably could do it within, that period. So if we
How
started
many
in the spring.
tons?
Do what now?
How many tons did you estimate?
300 a day.
300 a day.
Yeah. Now, of course, that's a lot lower. Like on the highway project, they're running maybe 800 to 900 a night on that particular project. So again,
I think my thought, Mr. Mayor, was that between the seasons, we're going to get a point where we can kind of, journal, look at our numbers, seeing if we may be places where we can stretch our asphalt a little bit. Like anything else, we can reevaluate and of course see how we progress through there. But it sounds like, and I'm thinking of a season. I don't know when. Is it April that the season?
Well, I mean, I feel like if you start in the spring of next year, that prior to winter, you'll finish this project
in that season. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, before we go around, I want to just make a comment. I'm looking at some of the streets that Alderwoman Hall has mentioned and Alderwoman Irving has mentioned. I've also listened to Alderman Frazier mention some side streets. What I'm noticing is that the cost of quite a number of those streets relatively small. We're talking $5,000 to $7,000. Some of these are small streets. I'm also noticing that some of the streets that Alderwoman Hall and Alderwoman Irving have listed on their list are major streets that carry a lot of traffic. And I think those definitely, just by nature of carrying a lot of traffic, should have some priority. An example being Learner's Mill Road. It's a major road that we've got to maintain there on going down the bluff. And then also several of the streets that Alderwoman Irving has brought up, there's a lot of traffic when you look at Arlington, North Rankin, and also obviously you mentioned Franklin Street.
I did.
I'm just going to kind of throw out an idea, and then we're going to continue discussion. But obviously, this is a lot more than the city's ever spent at one time, at least in recent memory. So perhaps a hybrid of what has been done, where the majority of the money is spent following the schedule, the priority list. However, there is a certain dollar amount assigned to each ward. And if we get to the project and you haven't spent all of that, it can go to others. And we go ahead and bid the list with as many streets as we feel like we can put on it, seeing how far the money goes. But in that list, we allow a certain dollar amount, be it $200,000 per ward. I'm just saying, just carve out a certain dollar amount that the alderman can help guide. Obviously, those projects would require an overall approval of the board to then, proceed. Now, I'm just throwing that out as an idea. Alderwoman Smith.
With that, I think that's in a way what we're saying. If you have streets that you feel aren't quite right on here, we're saying you can adjust that. So, I mean, it's kind of in doing the same thing. Why don't we try that first? And then if there's still a major problem with some street, But like, I mean, I have a different feeling about Duncan Park. I feel like everybody all over the city uses Duncan Park. I mean, people use it from every part of town, golfers, tennis, the kids from all the schools, private, public use it. That street is atrocious and a complete embarrassment for the city. I mean, if my 100,000 wood blue gonna be used, I'll put it toward that. I mean, I think it'd be wrong if we don't get that street done. Just
I totally
FYI, That's
agree.
just
I
one of my,
do.
my opinion.
We have to get that done. Alderman Frazier and then Alderwoman
Yes,
Hall.
Mr. Mayor, after looking at my list, I see, you're going, when we're talking about spending like $200,000 per ward or whatever. I got two of my streets and you can almost take up 100,000. That's why I was trying to, look at these streets and some of these are smaller streets that's cost, the estimated cost is small. I was trying to get those done so I can get within, if we set a certain price range, I need to get within that price range because, as I said earlier, we're not going to get to everyone, but the streets in the small neighborhood that don't cost that much, get them done. We can get them done, have them out the way. And some of the major thoroughfares, and like Martin Luther King, which is in my ward, it needs some work, but that's a major thoroughfare. We're gonna have to address that at another issue, another board meeting, whatever. But like I say, the smaller streets and the major streets that need to be done. Like I say, I rode all over my ward and I looked over and I seen what needs to be done. So I'm just sitting back, listening to everybody, and whatever we decide, those are two priorities. Like Broad Street, I put in there.
If I could just throw this out, we can bid this any way we wish, and then the board makes the final decision on the final street list based on the bids that come in. I mean, it's just like, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we,
Whatever fits in it can't happen. Because it's gonna change, y'all. We've
yeah.
done this, some of y'all have done this several times.
say we're bidding a construction project and the bids come in and we find that that one thing we wanted to get done is just too expensive. And so when we do the proposal, we actually take that out. We reserve that right, don't we? In the final analysis, Mr. Attorney, I think we reserve that right. This is why I'm asking that. If you look at this list, 1 and 2, those are the worst ranks. Those are the top the neediest streets. That gets us to number 70 on the list. And so our bid would automatically include those 70 streets, but it would also include an ad alternate
So that's one way you could go.
for each ward up to 200,000. And that allows each alderman to provide those ad alternate streets. And we've already got them from, now, once we get the final bid in, we see, okay, how far is this money going to go?
But that's not accurate
Alderwoman Hall?
according to the list because, as I alluded earlier, Beach Street, Bluff Street, Hictober, Irving Lane, Marion are way down on this list, but they are a high priority for Ward 1. And
So you
that's
talk
what I'm
about,
saying.
I think,
So that's what,
You just switch them out.
yeah, we could switch them out.
right, that's what I'm
certainly.
saying.
We could go there
That's
and
why
you
we
could,
don't even have but the mayor was saying
I'm listening.
the rank 1 and 2.
Well, what I'm
are
saying,
highest,
we
so-
get
so
one
that's-
bid on those, but then we also have the ad alternate bid on the others that aren't in that ranking up to 200,000 per ward. And then the board makes a decision, we're going to do these projects per each ward up to, 200,000 per ward. And then whatever's left, then the 70 streets.
And the only issue that I foresee with what you're speaking of is, kind of when you, in mind of your conversations and doing this, we spoke with APAC a number of times. And in the past, yes, they will just look at a street and give us a bid based on that. They are looking for a project of this size. They want it engineered, which set of plans and specifications. So if that's the route that you're going to go, you don't want to waste an engineer's time looking at 500 streets trying to put them on a list. You have it confined to this is the 65 streets that we're looking at doing, so they can go in and do a plan based on that particular
Okay.
street. That's the only thing I would say. And then when you get ready to bid, okay, we feel like this is going to be an estimated $5 million, then we can add 20 add alternate streets. And then if it is around that, then you can pick and choose that. You don't have to go back and bid the project. We just can pick what add alternates, or you, the board, can pick what add alternates in particular streets you want to add to it if it comes in with what you think.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Alderwoman Smith.
could, Mr. Dollar maybe give us an estimate on how some of this is going to take stuff off of what you probably had budgeted in your budget? I mean, is there anything that for anything for pothole? I don't know if this will help you.
We haven't, that's the thing, and we can't even develop anything until we know the particular street. Every street is going to,
will.
right, every street is going to cost, different. And that's why we need direction, or I need direction as far as what to go. I've got a list here. Are we going to utilize that? Are we going to give each alderman $200,000? Are we going to swap some of their streets around? Once we know that, then I can put a hard list together and say, these are the top 60 streets that we're looking at doing. And from there, we can start working on that.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So we're going to
Alderwoman
talk.
Smith.
Can we just, I think if we go ahead, and I think it's going to probably solve what you're bringing up. If we just go ahead and say, like, Alderwoman Hall has those 2 streets, and which ones that she feels like really aren't that bad on her list, trade them out, we might end up with the same.
Okay.
Well,
Well-
but if there ends up being a major problem, a major street that somebody doesn't get covered, then we'd have to just look at it individually.
Well, I want
I
to
don't
say,
think we will.
I would like to go ahead and knock this out. We still have an hour. We still have an hour to go. And, Alderwoman Hall, we're going to come back to you. If we look at your list, Alderman Frazier, I'm sorry, you have your hand up. We'll recognize you
I
first.
just want to, one more thing before I.
Okay, Alderwoman Hall.
And Alderwoman Irving mentioned North Rankin, that would cover 2 wards,
Mm-hmm.
Ward 1 and Ward
And Ward
4, because that street is atrocious.
That's right.
The
That's
entire
right.
North Rankin.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Frazier.
This project, you say it's probably going to get started by the spring of.
No, I don't. I can't say that again. I would just, Alderman Dillard was asking, how many seasons do you think it would encompass? And I was saying, if you started in the spring, I would feel like by the winter, you would pretty much be to the point where you were wrapping the project up.
So I'm quite sure we're not going to get to it this year.
Absolutely not.
Now, here's my concern. I know we're trying to get all these streets done, everything done in a reasonable time. But I'm looking at the economics part of it in the material costs. And all this is, and that $200,000, when you talk streets, is not a lot of money a piece. And all this stuff is to change. This might run, if we can look at these streets and pick out a street, like say you pick, like I told you, I got 2 priorities, but my 2 priorities might almost cost me $200,000, as I stated earlier, due to material costs and the way things are going up and the economics of it. Like say, concrete is definitely going up, and that's due to the war in Ukraine and everything else. So I'm just, we can sit here and do this, but like I say, we can go and get a list together, like the mayor say, all us get together and say, this is what we want to do and spend this money. So like I said, Mr. Mayor, that's just my basic concern about all this. We can do this, but I think the cost gonna run over to what we projected we're gonna do.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Frazier, definitely, it's not gonna be enough money to do everything we'd love to, but
Not everything, but
we'll
I'm
make
just-
some
we gonna-
progress.
As my mom say, we're gonna like to stretch it.
I'm looking at Alderwoman Hall's list right now, and Alderwoman Hall, the ones that you have in red, I think North Rankin's already number 70 on this list. I think Alderwoman Irving's in agreement on that one. I have circled that one. Of the other ones that you have on red, which ones of those do you think are the absolute must-dos?
Definitely Cemetery Road, as already listed.
Yes,
And North Rankin,
yes.
Beach Street, Bluff Street, Hicktober, Irving Lane.
Excuse me, hold on just one second. Beach Street, Bluff Street.
The second page.
Did you pass over Bishop Street?
No, Bishop, yes, these need to be on here, but you're asking the other priorities.
I'm just saying of these that you have in red,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you add those up, those would knock out a lot of streets that are in the top 70 Um, and is that something we want to do?
But some of them are not in the top 70 that need to be. in the top
That's right. The
That's right.
majority of these are not in the top
They're
70.
not in the top 70.
And,
Want to take out of the top.
and to prioritize them, we're gonna have to take some out of the
Yes,
top
the
70.
ones that are in black, I will take out.
Yeah, so I think what,
Right.
and I'm just speculating here,
More
but
than
if we were
black
gonna take
apple.
her award, for example,
Mhm.
and she provided this list.
I see.
Okay, the first one, Cemetery Road, well, Elm Street would be swapped out with Oak Street. Monroe Street would be swapped out with Old Browns
Mhm.
Lane.
I
St.
get it.
Mary's would be swapped out with North Rankin. We take her particular streets under her award, take the ones in red in the order she's got them in, and
Mhm.
move those, change them out with
Correct.
the ones we've got.
That's
We
right.
Okay.
can update, we can update a list based on that if that's what the board so chooses.
And even Beach Street, part of Beach is in Ward 4. So that's two wards.
The thing is, once we get down to 189, 378, swapping those out isn't going to necessarily move them up on the list because they're still going to be really low down unless we, for instance, took, here we have Vine Street, number 474. Do we want to move that up to the top 70? If we did, we'd have to take some out. So we're just.
Some of the streets in black would come out with your
Right.
reds going into place.
Correct.
Okay.
And
That's
that will
correct.
work up to a point.
Mhm.
For instance, take off Elm, Monroe, St. Mary. She's
What I
not-
could do, I could prioritize the ones I already have in red.
And then I can develop
Right.
a list.
I
off
could
of
do
it.
that.
That's not
I
a
could
problem.
prioritize that.
Okay,
But for how many? 10?
okay.
Just go down through and prioritize.
Right,
We'll
I could
take
do
yours
that.
that are already in there and
Mhm.
work them out if that's what the
Right.
board chooses to do.
Prioritize the red.
Well, we've got to take the ones in black off, and you're going to be able to take off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out of the top 70, you're going to take off 7.
And I'll be able to.
And
add-
then actually, there's some already in the top 70 that are listed in red. So actually, you can take off 9. And there's some that are already fixed. So that's 10, 11. So you can actually take off 11 and replace them with 11. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I can do that.
And so let's go ahead and do that. So let's take off number 1. On this sheet was Old Smith Lane. The work's already been done. So take Old Smith Lane off of the list. Take Elm Street off the list. Monroe off. St. Mary off. Hope Lane off. Jefferson Street, Canal to Broadway off. Take off Linton. Take off College Drive. Take off Winslow Lane. Take off Mulberry Street. Take off New Street. Choctaw Street. Jefferson Street. All right. And what I'm trying to do is then if for the ones we're taking off, have the same number we're adding to. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
So
Same dollar.
and we've got to then come up to the same
So-
dollar amount, but maybe it'll average
so
out.
what is that? They need 11?
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Add 1. And Cemetery Road's already on the list, but
I
this
can
would
give
leave
you
you
11. I can
1,
give you 11 now.
3, 4,
So that would be
6, 7.
that are not, okay, that would be Beach, Bluff, Hicktober, Irving Lane, Marion Avenue, October Pogo, Lawrence Mill Road, which is Cooper Street, McIntyre, which is also 2 wards, 1 and 2.
Mhm.
And Mario.
Okay.
So how many was that?
So
Was that
if you
11?
would, I'm checking these off. So the ones that you would add to it,
Move them up would be
if
Beach,
you- give me those again.
Beach,
Beach.
Beach Street, Bluff Street,
Mhm.
Hicktober on the second page,
Mhm.
Irving Lane, Marion Avenue, October Street, Pogo Street, Mario, Lawrence Mill Road, which is Cooper Street, McIntyre. How many is that now?
I lost you there
Hold on.
on some of those that you were just.
That's
giving me.
10.
10, one more would be, Alice Lane, I'm sorry, and add Alice Lane. So that would be 11.
So basically, we're taking off 11 and
Add
adding
11.
11. Okay. Do you have those streets, Justin?
To move them up, that's what you want moving up, moving up the ones that are lower on the list.
Yeah.
Do you want me to repeat that again?
I'm not seeing Irving Lane on your
Irving
list.
Lane is on the third sheet.
Um,
Oh, Irving? It's
wait,
on the
I only
second.
have 2 sheets of yours.
There should be
Maybe
three
I'm
sheets.
missing a sheet.
Irving Lane is on the second.
Okay, I was missing a sheet. I see it. I see it. No wonder I couldn't find them. Okay. So, we know Cemetery Road's gonna be on there.
Yes, I'm
We
not
know
changing.
Oak. We know Old Browns Lane's gonna be on there.
Everything above
North Range,
Beach Street,
yes.
everything above Beach, I'm leaving on there.
Okay. What about Bishop?
Everything above Beach.
Okay. All right.
So I've added 11 more, I think. Beach Street, Bluff Street, October Street, Pogo Street, Mario Street,
Wait, we're skipping around. October Street, Pogo Street,
Mario,
Mario,
Alice Lane, Lerner's Mill, which is Cooper Street, McIntyre Boulevard. So 2 of mine are North Rankin, which is on top of page 1.
mhm,
That also intersects with Ward 4, and McIntyre is part of Ward 2 and 1.
okay. All right. I tell you what, to be sure I have the right list, would you mind circling those and then handing them down to me?
Sure.
Okay, let's go now to Alderwoman Irving. She had her list. Alderwoman Irving,
I'm gonna highlight.
I don't see the rankings on your list. How many of these are already in our top 70?
And Mayor, we can go back and do that. If this is the priority you want to follow, then I will go through and find which streets, based on the current list we have, are in your ward.
Okay.
And we will swap them out based on your priority. If this is the priority 1, 2, 3, 4, the way you want to go.
It is, yes, this is where I'm.
Okay.
And because we wrote these streets.
Yeah.
Basically. we
If
wrote
this
all
is the
of them.
priority you want to do them in, then I can go back in and put those in and provide you all with a list updated on that.
I am.
Okay.
Justin, one of the other things though, I was just looking here and I see that it was ranked number 4 in ranking. I think it's 208, and that's gonna be, Auburn Avenue, and it said from John Quitman to Winchester Road. So that would cover that from East Franklin all the way out to,
It says what?
Winchester.
It says what?
the ranking number is 208.
No,
The
I'm
rank
saying-
is 4.
Yeah, but where's the stop and
says-
start?
Auburn Avenue from John Quitman to Winchester Road.
So
So,
that's John Quitman, the big intersection, back to Winchester. So it would not cover from Quitman to East Franklin.
It needs to be paid. It needs to.
but that entire street needs to be done from East Franklin to Auburn.
Okay, it's just it'll be in a different spot in
Okay,
here. How it's
just want to
broken
make
out.
sure. And since we were adding, and I was just looking to see here, Fifth Street and Tima Street, those are small streets that we could done because they have had a lot of repairs that need to be done, and not a lot.
I mean, on this particular list that you gave me, there's 20 streets on.
It is, and I
We're not
just
gonna
looked to
get,
see-
we're not gonna get past that.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, you see what I'm saying?
And quite a number of
Looking at
these are
costs,
already in the
that's what I was
70s.
basing it on. I mean,
It's
because when you
still-
look at 3,000 and 2,000 to get those streets done, it wasn't a lot.
No, I understand, but I think when you probably run these 20 streets here, when you run these numbers, the cost is gonna be up there.
Okay, so we don't see where we could, if the mayor was saying that we have extra streets from other wards that could be done. Could we possibly look at getting Fifth Street and?
Well, you
Tima Street
could, but
done?
I'm saying if you turned in 20 streets, if every alderman turned in 20 streets, that's 120 streets.
Right,
We know that's not gonna happen.
right.
That's all I think on your list, there's more than enough for your particular ward.
Some of these are already in the top rankings though,
And they
I'm
are,
noticing.
they are.
Mhm.
Okay, so do you need me to go through them?
If this is the order you want them in, I can
This is
take
the
it from
order
here,
that I
and once
want.
I get done, I can
Okay.
provide you all a list
Okay,
back.
this is the
And
order that I
it'll
want.
indicate on there what swapped out what.
Okay.
So you can follow.
Okay. I think we're almost there then. Alderman Frazier,
Yes,
are there any particular streets you'd
Yes.
like to throw out?
yes, Mr. Mayor, in the top 7 rank, I see I have about 4 or 5 of them already in there. So let me give them to you. The first one, number 22 is Camp Street. That was one of my requests that I asked you.
Yeah, I've
It's
got
number
it.
22 on the list. Number 28 is Muscagny. Those, they are.
They're in there.
If
Yeah,
they're in the
I'm
top,
just informing them, let them know.
okay,
That's all I'm doing. And
Yes,
like,
Alderman.
and number 31 is Sunset. And we was talking about Concord. So I had that, but all this bump into Miss Urban Ward too. And number 47, Ivy Lane. That's number, and number 60. Although I know that we done did Daisy Street, the Daisy Street project, Inez Street, and all that, but I did discuss with you at the top of the hill
Inez Court.
where Miss Owens stay down there. I put that on there so you can get to her, please.
that really does need attention.
Yes.
I would agree with you.
And
Is that Inez Street?
Inez Court.
yes, on top on the Inez.
We need to move that up. Well, it's already at 60, so it is
It's in the
it's
top
in the
ranking.
top rank.
And Mr. Dollar, I have a few more but they're not in the top 20, like Homewood Park, Homewood Drive out there.
So like what we'll do for your particular award, I know you're saying, I think to kind of touch on what Sarah was talking about, some of the ones you're mentioning are already in the top 60.
Okay,
What we need to be focusing on is what of your streets that are in the top 60 that you would like to swap some of the ones that aren't in the top 60 out with. Which you gave me a number of these. I've got Sunset, Muscagny, East Ears Lane, Martin's Lane, Camp Street, Concord, Ivy Lane, and Inez Court.
okay.
I can
Those
work
need
through
to
those.
stay in.
Yeah,
No, I know that's the ones that he
Yeah.
favors.
Yeah,
He
they stay in.
prioritized.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Did I give you Martin's Lane?
Mhm.
Okay. And I can't get, I had people requesting. You put Smith Lane and Vaughn Drive.
Okay.
Mr. Dollar, I have a question. Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes,
Mr.
Alderwoman Irvin.
When we do, from Brenham to South Concord, where would that stop? Does it stop at Kelly Avenue or, because it does intersect there?
Brenner is from Minor to Concord. So
Okay.
it stops it goes from the intersection of Minor Street all the way to Concord to the triangle at Concord,
Okay, just,
is where it would be.
okay.
And Alderman Frazier, do you have some more?
Yes, Birdwood, and he's gonna be my last one. Dale Court, which is off of Martin Luther King and Ray Street. And kind of skeptical, but I'm gonna put it down in Horseshoe Circle in Miami Court. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Alderman Frazier. At this point, what I would suggest then is we ask Mr. Dollar to come back with a final list. This may then require us to, we don't need
You
a
have
vote.
set the money and whatever it gets on our, we're gonna have the
Yeah.
list straight.
We'll have the list.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're set to go.
Okay.
Once he brings the list back, we can see.
All right.
But then we can also have to wait to see whether or not some of the aldermen talk with the supervisors to see
Yeah.
whether or not they can be done before then. I'm gonna ask. I am asking.
Alderman
What
Dillard,
they do.
you had your hand up?
I know this is the ranking, but from a construction effort would this necessarily be the order that the contractor would be trying to follow?
No.
Because, I mean, I think what it is, and I get, we're trying to get trade streets out, Mr. Mayor, but I also want to see in the effort as to which streets within your ward would be addressed, first, is what I'm
No,
thinking.
this has no bounds on the order the contractor would pay.
And we
the
won't
actual
have
streets.
we probably won't have any leverage or to dictate to him where to
No.
begin and where to finish.
No, and I feel like once they do it, I know in the past when it's done, it's been based on logistics. It may be a street that touches Ward 1 and 2. Well, they try to catch everything in that area before they mobilize to another area. And that'll be done when there's a final list of streets. The contractor will set and pick and say, okay, for him, logistic wise and mobilization to get all my equipment moved, he's not going to run to Ward 6 and do a street, run to Ward 1 and do one, and, back and forth. They're going to try to catch everything in those areas and make sure it all works. That's how we've done it in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Now, I'm not to say that if you have a particular street or a few streets that you want done, we couldn't talk to the contractor. If there was a certain time period that needed to be done in, he may be certainly willing to do that. You
Okay.
should see at that point.
At this point, we do need to have a discussion on striping and milling. And it's really my thought that we should rely on the experts to guide us on that. Obviously, striping is not required on a lot of
A lot
residential
of residential
streets,
streets. No, it's
but
not.
on streets that are above a certain traffic count.
So I think that would be the thing we would do. Once we get a list of streets done and we select an engineering firm to put this together, and as we go out and assess these particular streets, we'll come back and say this street needs milling at these points, or the entire street needs done. Curb and gutter needs to be repaired at these particular stations. All that will be specified in that per particular individual street on a street by street basis. And you're correct, Mayor. I know regarding a minute ago, Sarah, you had mentioned street striping on Louisville Road. We striped that 2 years ago. Again, that goes back to how do we want to go striping? We can use paint, which was what's done, which is the cheaper method, or use thermoplastic, which is about 3 to 4 times as high in doing that. But it does, your life expectancy goes up 3 to 4 times in doing that, but the cost is that much more as well. So all those are things that have to be thought about when you go to do a project.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderman
Before
Fraser.
we leave, we talking about the streets and stuff. My concern now, the bigger concern I have now is that in my ward, especially in my ward, that, as you know, Miller Pipe is doing a lot of construction work, tearing these streets up. Who in the future, who gonna maintain those? 'Cause some of these streets we're not gonna.
Right.
Pay.
So the way that works is any utility company, we have a ordinance in place. And the particular utility company that actually digs into it or tears it up, they're ultimately responsible. So what happens is that they make the repairs themselves, and there's a 1-year warranty period. And so we have all these listed on software. And at the 11-month cycle, we go back to every individual patch. And if it has settled or sunk, any of that has ever happened in that case, then at that point, we get them to come back out and make those repairs. After the 1-year warranty period, then it's on us moving forward to maintain patches, any of that in that case.
Yeah, because we have some streets that's in some good condition, but they're.
Well, I was going to say that applies to the waterworks too. I mean,
That
I
applies
know
to
they're an
everybody.
enterprise unit of the city of Natchez, but they have responsibilities. And I think, Mr. Mayor, it would be advisable to keep them abreast and aware of the, the scheduling, so that if they have latent repairs that they've been, haven't gotten to yet, because just as soon as you pour this asphalt, somebody's going to cut a hole in it.
That's right. In fact, I was going to bring that up. When we have this final list, it is very important that we get with Waterworks, because they do have a number of projects that are scheduled, and we need to make sure they get those out of the way. Another thing we've got to consider is we're going to be embarking upon, I hope soon, an improvement to our city in area of broadband. And as broadband is installed, that is underground. Now, a lot of this is done through tools that tunnel and trench, but in some cases they may be. And I think this is good timing. We actually have a broadband discussion on the agenda for tonight. And and it would be nice if we could proceed with that broadband work, and be able to, whoever we end up working with, give them the list of the streets, and whatever work they've got to do, they will do it on those streets first. Because yes, like you say, we really want to avoid, I'm so glad you brought up Alderman Frazier. We really want to avoid anyone tearing up a street after we've just resurfaced it.
And I just want to add to that, because I've inquired with Waterworks, they're having the same issue that we're having with getting asphalt and things like that. Because some of the cuts are approximately a year old now. I can identify Ward 4, so they're having that same issue
Yeah.
with getting it.
I also want to mention this, a roadway that we've been discussing, but is not on this list, is Clifton Alley. And there's a reason, because Clifton Alley is a road that has serious drainage issues. And it is the only road that many residents have to use because, as you know, Clifton no longer exists in the major length of that roadway in front of the homes on the bluff. We are looking at that as part of the drainage study that has almost been completed. And as we look at the federal funds and state funds and matching funds through DEQ grants that are for drainage issues, we're hoping that we can address that area along with so many other drainage areas as we start a new phase of the Natchez, drainage project.
That's Clifton and Taylor's at it.
Yes.
Yeah, they were renamed several years ago. It's all Clifton Alley.
Clifton, yeah.
It
It
used to
was,
be
it was
Taylor's.
Taylor's. One portion was Taylor's.
Yeah, if you ever go through there when it's, we haven't seen one lately, but when we do see a torrential rain, it becomes a river, and it really has become a problem for those residents, washing out driveways and creating all kinds of problems. I think we've had a great meeting. So no motion is needed. We're going to wait until the final list, but we do want to proceed with the next step toward bidding. Yes.
So that was going to be my next question. Just to clarify with everyone, I've got information from everyone. Sarah, the list in the order that it is, you're good with that. Ben, you gave me 2 streets, Dumas and McNeely, and Alderman Dillard. You're good with the list, that the order they're in now?
Well, I'm going to take that I'm going to look at some of the smaller ones and see if I can
So
trade them within.
You're going
that
to try to
group.
get me that in the next few days? Okay. So I'll wait on that from him, and we'll take care of that. The rest of them I can begin working on.
Okay.
Once we get the street, I'll provide that list back to you all to review, at which time, if you are satisfied, then we can start the discussions to, about moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you
And
very
so
much.
we'll look at that final list at our next regular board meeting in 2 weeks. And then we'll be ready to bid. All right. Well, at this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, second?
A motion made by Alderman Davis, seconded by Alderwoman Hall. Any discussion on the motion? Call for the question.
Second?
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. And I want to commend our spectators for remaining awake and being here. It's not the most exciting conversation, but I think we're headed in a very good direction for
So
Natchez.
too.